And we all know this conspiracy theory that they don't want you to breed, so they deliberately make men to be more feminine as a part of some wild conspiracy. What if I told you that men were becoming more feminine, but it had nothing to do with them? Think about this. We can all see that something is changing. And I don't mean like gender roles, like questioning gender roles is wrong. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying look at what is traditionally seen as feminine and how that's being pushed on men today and does have an effect. Now, it's not overtly being pushed, but it's something that has developed slowly. Okay, let me be specific about what I'm saying here. Largely, what we know as to be femininity came from housewives being at home in the Norman Rockwell painting era. And these wives were home. They didn't have to work. A man did make enough money, etc. And this is when the little golden age of capitalism in the United States was really taking off. Now, the post-war prosperity and all that. So capitalism comes up with all this prosperity that it's got to sell you something. That's what capitalism does. If it's not selling you something, it's dying. And one of the ways that they did this was to reach housewives through magazine ads, the newly discovered medium of television, etc. If you really want your husband to like you, you got to wear this lipstick. You got to wear this designer dress. You got to cook this particular kind of meal, and you got to make it the right way, or else he's going to hit you or something like that, or leave you for a younger woman who knows how to cook, or something like that. So it became this mass marketing campaign to sell these things to women, particularly clothes, makeup, jewelry, all of that stuff that we traditionally associate with women, because the money was there. The husbands had the money. They wanted the status symbol, and it was sold to women that this is the thing you got to do. That's where it started. Now, what if I told you throughout the decades of the tendency of the rate of profit to fall, that capitalism had to sell you more and more things? Or they had to find a bigger and bigger market for these things. Until we get to today. And a lot of the makeup, clothing, and jewelry companies were like, or particularly grooming products. Women spend an enormous amount of money on grooming products. What if those same companies decided, hey, we could sell that to men too? Now, some of you might remember in the 90s, there was this thing called the metrosexual, which was a terrible name because it had nothing to do with sexuality. It was this idea that men had to wear the nice clothes, the nice cologne. They had to do the super expensive grooming. They had to have the haircut like every other week to fit this exact thing. And it was called metrosexual. Some of you are probably maybe even old enough to remember that. That was a short-lived fad. It didn't stay very long. Keep in mind, this was the same era that was trying to compete with grunge. And grunge was pretty much largely a rejection of the materialism that came out of the 1980s. And hell, even the 1980s had a great deal of androgyny. Men were wearing a lot of the similar clothes, women similar colors, even some kind of, there was a great deal of hype around androgyny at the time. And this was done again in the 90s with metrosexual. And now we're seeing it again in what we could probably call the SJW era. Now, back then, these things were sold to you as a way to make money. It was very difficult to get it off the ground. The fad of androgyny passed. The whole metrosexual thing faded away. But now it's come back again. And it's come back in a very different way. It's not just this thing, oh, you got to do. Now it's this thing you got to do if you're against whatever thing is the boogeyman right now. Masculinity is evil. And that's bad. You can't do the male pattern aggression. You can't be strong, assertive, particularly aggressive, you know what you got to do now? You got to do the gender thing. And I'm not saying questioning gender roles is bad. That's fine if you want to do that. But it's bad when capitalism tells you to do it. When capitalism is trying to make you do it, they're trying to sell you something. So now all these men are now very feminized in the traditional sense of what is feminine. They're buying the hair care products. They're getting the man bun. A lot of them are getting manicures now. In other words, what this really translates to is spending a lot of superfluous money. They're really just selling you a product. Right? Now think about this. This happens at the same time as the so-called gender revolution is going on. What if capitalism has an ulterior motive here, and that is to sell you things? I know that's a stretch, that capitalism would co-opt something rather than investigating oppressive this or that they just turned it into a system to sell you something. Come on, you want to be the real rebellion against patriarchy? Start buying all this needless shit. No, of course, patriarchy is a bad thing. I don't think anybody would really disagree with that. But there's a difference between fighting patriarchy and just reinforcing the negative side of traditionally understood femininity. Now, this all comes as trying to get rid of what are traditionally seen as the masculine traits: aggressive, assertive, etc. In other words, making you rather complacent. Not the stand up for what you believe in, aggressive type. You know, the kind of people that you would need to challenge an unjust system. What if I told you this wasn't a conspiracy, but just the natural product of a system in decay? The natural product of a system that will look for any reason to sell you anything for whatever reason, just because it needs a profit in order to continue. So this feminization of men, in this proper context, understood within a capitalist context, within a Marxist materialist analysis, is something very different than what we're fed by the right wing, as it being some kind of conspiracy by they. So what if I told you this was trying to make you weak on purpose, so that you wouldn't stand up for yourself, so that you wouldn't aggressively stand against the injustices of that same system? Does that sound like something the bourgeoisie would do? Make a population subservient, weak, unable, and unwilling to defend itself, because standing up for yourself and being aggressive would be too masculine, and that's bad now. You can't do that. What if I told you it was okay to be masculine? What if I told you that we didn't have to listen to this bourgeois weakening garbage, but we also didn't have to listen to this right-wing extremist nonsense either? What if we could properly analyze what was going on? Now, we know capitalist culture is bad. From the bottom to the top, the whole thing is reactionary and has to go. The Soviet Union, Lenin, Stalin, everybody knew that the rotten capitalist culture had to go, and that we had to write a new one. What if we did that? What if we redefined what it meant to be a man? What if we said there was a code of honor men had to live by that was actually good, not some kind of, antiquated nonsense about chivalry and a bunch of other nonsense about being misogynistic? What if we had real values? What if we had values like a strong man lifts up the weak? He doesn't beat them down. What if we said a strong man challenges what's wrong and sought out challenges, sought out worthy opponents, not beat down weak ones? What if we said there was honor in treating women with respect? What if there was honor in not saying women are obligated to have sex with you? And that you had to go out and earn that. That you had to work for it. Why not? We Marxists, we would agree that we go out and we should work to produce the value in society, and we should receive that value because we are the workers who produce it. Why can't we put that same work ethic into other things? What if we said to this bourgeois, decadent, postmodernist garbage culture that, yeah, it is okay to be a man, but I want to be the right man. I want to be the man that stands up for the poor, who stands up for the weak, who uses whatever power he has to do the right thing, not be a bully, a coward, a liar, a bourgeois. What if the strength you had, instead of using it to exploit and oppress others, was used to lift those same marginalized people up? What if he had a real code of honor, something that a man could really believe in? Not some antiquated, pro-capitalist garbage that's of a bygone era that's no longer relevant. But not this bourgeois, decadent crap about essentially having to act in a submissive, traditionally seen as feminized way. What if everybody should be strong? What if everybody had to live by this code of honor and were better people for it? Does that sound like something you'd be interested in? What if I told you you could be a better man, and that you could be a man and it's okay, as long as you were the right man with the right values? And I'm not sitting here talking about some backwards 50s, you have to be the nuclear family kind of thing where women have to stay at home and work, etc. What if I told you that there could be a new one? You shared responsibilities with your wife. Your marriage was an actual partnership if you want to get married. Like an actual partnership, you actually share responsibilities for everything instead of assigning particular roles. And maybe if you and your wife agree to those roles and you want to do them, that's okay. Because you know what? Let me say something that might seem a little bit controversial. Why do you think there is such a nostalgia for Stalin among not just the global poor who see him as a rightful hero that stood up for people, built a new society, industrialized, etc. But what about first world people? Why is there such a nostalgia for first world Marxists? And I don't even mean like first worldists. I mean just Marxists in the first world in general. Because Stalin was a strong man. Stalin got the job done. When there was a problem, when the Nazis were being a problem, he put his foot in their ass and smashed them all the way back to Berlin. And that was not only the hyper-masculine thing to do, that was the right thing to do. And a weak man would not have been able to do that. What if you had an army of strong men? Men who weren't afraid to be assertive, strong, determined. Isn't that what they teach you in the army? I mean, they teach you pretty much blind subservience. But they don't teach you to be weak. They teach you to be strong. Anybody who's gone into the military and then come back out, you can see a personality change. Because that's what it does. It changes you. Being a soldier. It changes you into a stronger person. And there's much to criticize about the culture or the indoctrination of the imperialist soldier. But what if that notion of strength was something everybody could have? Not even just men. I kind of really wanted to talk to men in this video, but you know what? In fairness, let's give that kind of strength to everybody. I think a lot of people miss Stalin because he was the guy to get the job done. He was strong, he was the man with the plan, the 5-year plan. And as a man of steel, he got the job done. He took that backwards society and he slammed it through an industrial revolution and gave us a global superpower. He wouldn't have been able to do that if he was weak. And I think people miss that. Because look at all this garbage that we're being fed. Buy this, buy that. You gotta have the right thing here. You gotta have the right thing there. You think Stalin ever cared about that crap? And I don't mean this to sound as some kind of Stalin worship. I mean because Stalin is like the best example of what I'm trying to say. You know, he wasn't a dirty looking. He was strong. He was solid. He wasn't decadent. He had the discipline. He had the strength to transform a nation and to beat the Nazis. I like that. I like strong men who can get the job done. Why do you think people like Putin? There's a lot to criticize about Putin. But guess what? He's a strong man. People respect that. And he gets the job done. Why do you think so many people on the right love Trump so much? The guy's an incompetent buffoon. He's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's doing. But in the eyes of his followers, he's a confident, arrogant, well, they don't even see him as arrogant. They think that he deserves to be that arrogant. But they see him as a strong man. Well, if the government doesn't do what I want it to, then I'm going to threaten people, etc. And he pushes American exceptionalism out of a dirty word into something that's very open and overt. Look at what he said about Syria. Oh, we've got the oil fields. We got what we want. Or we're going to go back in and get the oil fields. Because no matter how fake Donald Trump is, the image that he projects to his followers is that of a strong man. Contrast that to what? Hillary Clinton? Someone who's an establishment pro-war viper? You could say the same thing about Trump. But that's not how she comes across. Oh, you got to support Hillary Clinton because she's a woman, or if you don't support her, you're sexist, or that means you support the Republican Party. Not that you could support Bernie Sanders or anything. But think about that. That's why they like him, because he gives the finger to the liberals all the time, and they love that. They love his arrogance, just shooting his mouth off. He doesn't even say anything. He gives these bland pleasantries that don't mean anything, because he acts in the way that they want. They want the alpha male billionaire who's going to get the job done, even though the guy astonishingly fails at absolutely everything. They think he does it, and that's what's important. Maybe we can have strong men again with real values. Not bullshit, liberal, bourgeois, wishy-washy, worthless values. Not backward, right-wing, antiquated, Stone Age values. But real values. Values that we could forge ourselves. Maybe have a big national dialogue. Maybe have, a big struggle session, like during the Cultural Revolution in China, to what the new man should be. Isn't that what Che Guevara espoused? The new man, rewriting what a man should be, what a person should be. Or specifically, he meant what a person should be. But he used the word man because that was the kind of language that was used back then. And Che Guevara called him the new man. The new man that wasn't like that. The man who had the respect, who worked hard to better the nation and didn't do it on bourgeois constraints or for his own selfishness. What happened to that theory? We don't hear that one anymore. Because we're fed liberal ID poll postmodernist garbage about what a real man should be, and ends up not even really being a man at all. I don't think there's anything honorable in being weak. Even women shouldn't be weak. But I'm talking to the other men in the audience, which are probably the majority of my audience. Why do we have to do that? You know I don't support that ID poll bullshit. Why do you think a lot of people like me? I think I give good analysis, and somebody told me because I don't come off as one of these SJW types that's always bashing everybody for saying the wrong word or not having this uniquely liberal, postmodern, to keep using the word postmodernist line. Because I think people want a strong man. And I'm not necessarily saying that I'm a strong man. But if you compare me to the way most of what is idealized now, I am a strong man. If you compared me to a 1950s man, I would seem kind of weak. But compared to what's available now, I seem strong, for the most part. Trying not to toot my own horn, but I think you understand the point that I'm trying to make. What if we did make men strong again? You know what a big part of what holds us back? Not just the bourgeoisie. Is capitalist culture, and more specifically, alienation. Look at the alienation that we suffer today as a result of the intensifying late-stage capitalism. Alienation is getting worse. And people say, oh, look at kids today, they're so weak compared to kids, a generation ago. Well, just look at millennials compared to Generation X like me. You don't even have to go back to boomers. You don't even have to go that far. Kids didn't get weaker. Culture got more toxic. Alienation got worse. What was the grunge movement in the 1990s? That was alienation. Alienation away from the super hyper materialistic view of the world that we had to have. That was a rejection of the 60s and 70s rebellion against the materialism, etc., and the civil rights struggle, etc. Now, the 90s thing didn't last as long as we would have wanted it to, particularly in a large way, grunge. So the alienation has gotten worse since then. The contradictions of capitalism become more sharp. The effects of alienation are worse. Kids didn't get weaker. The situation got worse. The alienation got worse. And you got people who don't understand this, who don't understand capitalist alienation, telling you there's something wrong with you. Yeah, there's something wrong with you because society fucked you up. Because capitalism fucked you up. How about we take that back? How about we get that real proletarian culture and we make people strong again? We make men strong again. On new values, better values. Values about helping those who are weaker, rather than beating them down and calling it a virtue of the system and like social Darwinism of capitalism or some bullshit like that. What if we became real men? Real men with a real code of honor. How about, what do they call it in Australia? The mate code? Something like that, but not so reactionary and bullshit. What if we had real honor? Real strength? I think we could use that. And I don't think the bourgeoisie wants us to have that. Oh, they want the police to have it. That aggressive, strong, slightly psychotic for the police in the military. But you, the average citizen, no. You shut up, you sit down, and you keep telling yourself that, oh, you just gotta vote. There's no need to get too angry. There's no need to stand up and get angry about the injustice around you. What do you think? You want to be better? I want to be better. I want to be better for any potential children I have in the future. I doubt it'll happen, but who knows? What about the future in general? What about kids in general? Assuming we don't blow this planet up or burn it alive. Because I don't think that this is the best that we can be. I think we can be better. I think as men we can be better. We don't have to be this ridiculous bourgeois idea of decadence, and I don't think we have to be some backwards dumbass Rockwell painting. I think we can be better than both of those things. And I think you know what I'm talking about when you see the demonization of masculinity. Now, I'm not against fighting patriarchy. Of course, fight patriarchy all day, every day. I'm not saying you should go back to this time when men ruled women or something. I've said repeatedly, write a new one, where that's a partnership. I'm not saying women are weak and that they should be lifted up or something. I'm saying equality, true equality. Not this, bring men down in order to lift women up. How about just lift women up? So we can all be on the same level of strength and we can all respect each other. I think that's a conversation we need to have. I think that's an idea that everyone here, anyone who's a fan of me, can generally support such an idea. What about it? What do you think? I want you to tell me in the comments section. Do you think that right now this is the best that men can do? I'm not going to stand here and try to say what a woman should or shouldn't be. I'm going to stand here and say what a man should and shouldn't be. I say we don't go in for this materialistic garbage. Stop trying to sell us shit that we don't need. Instead of telling us that, you gotta have the gun for whatever reason. What if you had the gun to defend yourself? Instead of seeing guns as this evil masculinity that we got to get rid of, what if we got a real one? Defending your family. I think every man's got a right to defend his family. Everybody's got a right to self-defense, period. But in this particular context, we're talking about men. Say we can defend ourselves. We're allowed to. We're allowed to defend our families. We're allowed to defend our homes. And we're allowed to defeat fascism, too. What do you think? You tell me in the comment section what you think about that. Because I think masculinity is okay. But we should redefine it to be something that's good. Not something decadent and not something Stone Age ridiculous. How about we forge a new manhood? A new masculinity. One that serves the goal of equality. Of not trying to dominate or bring yourself down to other people's level, but to lift other people up. You know what? I don't see a problem with that. And I know there's going to be a lot of, SJW liberals trying to pass themselves off as Marxists, whining on social media saying that I'm trying to defend patriarchy or some kind of reactionary nonsense. You know what's going to happen. But let's ignore them. What do you as a man want to be? Do you want to be weak? Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.